Hey, how y'all doing? This is Mongo. Thank you for choosing the Magnificent Mongo Slave for all your wrestling information and content. Like, share, and subscribe. Now let's get into the video. All right. How y'all doing? So we about to read a couple of articles. Basically, they're on the same subject. The Miz went on Busted Open Radio to discuss him losing his main event push in 2011 after he lost the title to John Cena. He has never been anywhere near a WWE Championship since. So both these articles are from the same subject, but they just have different sort of content. So we're going to read both of them, and I'm going to give you my thoughts because this is the absolute state of the Miz. So let's discuss this. The Miz has opened up about his losing his main event push back in 2011, following WrestleMania 27. He addressed the lost momentum during an interview with Busted Open Radio. Miz confessed, this is from SES Scoops, by the way. Miz confessed he felt his momentum shift following his victory over John Cena at WrestleMania 27. He pointed out how to creative changed in the background, quote unquote. He believes this change-up within the creative team stymied his main event run. Whenever you hear about heads leaving, Miz said, and then another head coming in, obviously Vince runs the whole thing, Miz stated, but there are different, I guess you can say, creative people. There are different writers that when you have a head leave and then another head comes in, he'll have his guys. Miz admitted that when he eventually lost the WWE Championship to John Cena, there was a role shift in the writing process. At that point, he claimed he could see what was going to happen. According to The Miz, he foresaw that he was going to be utilized to develop new talent. Quote on from The Miz. I was just utilized for the past, year to get me where I am. Now it's time to make other people. And I didn't have the wherewithal to make sure that I was being made as well. And I didn't have the experience. And I think it took me a little while. The Miz don't having to be rebuilt. The Miz also addressed how being drafted to Raw further damaged his momentum. He explained how when a superstar is drafted, it quote-unquote changes your career like it changes everything. Miz then recalled being on SmackDown, primed up and ready for the WWE Championship. At the time, he was the Intercontinental Champion. He believed the Intercontinental Championship was, quote, the most talked about title in the WWE. This built up his confidence, leading him to believe he was headed directly for the WWE Championship. Then there's another quote from The Miz. And then I got drafted to Raw. And once I got drafted to Raw, I felt like I went from there and I had to build myself back up. I was able to do that, and I did it once again. And once I felt like I was ready and primed for the WWE Championship again, I got drafted again. And it kept going back and forth, and you have to continuously build yourself up. The Miz acknowledged how not every superstar faces that challenge. He explained how some are forever positioned in the main event slot and can be easily drafted without losing status and momentum. He admitted that this didn't apply to him. Instead, he had to be redeveloped and actively build himself up again with each subsequent brand change. All right, so this is the first article from SES Scoops. So you get where he's going with this, right? That he's sort of being kept out of the main event by constantly being moved back and forth. But to be quite honest, what's taking place is the Miz has become a gatekeeper. Now, gatekeeping is a really good role because in wrestling, there's always this guy who breaks through the glass ceiling, becomes a world champion. Usually, he's not really viewed as a world champion by everybody else, but it's to give him some type of credibility so that he can have matches later and have that on his record. Ronnie Garvin was such a guy. Ronnie Garvin won the NWA World Heavyweight title. People was like, what? Ronnie Garvin? And yeah, it was yeah. Ronnie Garvin was the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. And they can't take it away from you. So they can always use that to bolster your credibility in ring. Even if you're, on a losing streak, whoever beats you has beaten a former NWA World Heavyweight Champion if they beat Ronnie Garvin. They do this with all sorts of titles. Like a guy will win, like Tito Santana when he won the Intercontinental Championship. He was the Intercontinental Champion for a while, never got back to that level. And from then on, though, he will always be referred to as a former Intercontinental Champion. So even if he lost, you would think that his opponent who beat him was on an Intercontinental Championship level. And this is basically what happened to The Miz. He broke through the glass ceiling, got up to that point, and then they just decided to turn him into a gatekeeper. And basically, if you beat The Miz, you're kind of ready for the next level. Even though the level kept going down though, because he's going to explain in this Wrestling Inc. Transcription of the same interview of why that happened. So this is the Wrestling Inc. part. Let's read. Bully Ray asked The Miz what has kept him from returning to the world title scene. The Miz gave possible reasons with counterpoints. He questioned whether his size played a factor, but points out that it hasn't hindered Daniel Bryan. He also noted that the importance of wins and losses in terms of fan perception. I don't know, The Miz admitted. If I looked at myself in the mirror, and I'm completely honest with myself, I look at myself and say, well, you're only 6'1", you're only 200 and something pounds, but then you sit there and go, well, Daniel Bryan. But Daniel Bryan is known as a technical wrestler. I always drive it back to, I'm known as a reality star. Reality stars aren't supposed to be butt kickers, but I think I've proven myself to do that. And honestly, I think it's just bad timing sometimes. I wish there was just a clear-cut answer on why I'm not the guy. Maybe the creative thinks differently. I always have this problem. Whenever someone comes out of a meeting or something, I'm like, man, I lost. And they're like, yeah, but tomorrow you'll get back on the microphone and nobody will remember that loss. But then I'm like, yeah, but once you start losing quite a bit in WWE, people start looking at you like a loser. The Miz also talked about how he was always excelled as a heel, but says that may factor into him being world champion since WWE is a good guy business. You need to have wins under your belt, said The Miz. Big wins. And I've always been the bad guy. I'm really good at being the bad guy. I'm not good at being a good guy. I know I'm not. And sometimes I think that's the reason. Because if you look at WWE, it's a good guy business. You look at our biggest stars, they've always been good guys. I've always been that catalyst, that person that's a villain, that would do whatever it takes to cheat, lie, or do whatever. Whenever I'm going to over the hump, where people are starting to respect me and say who were cheering this guy, I'm just so good at being bad that it just doesn't work in my opinion. Maybe that's it. So this is The Miz trying to be nice. But he's not entirely wrong. WWE does business backwards. Wrestling is usually driven by the heels. That's how the NWA did it. All the little territories used to have a heel leader. Heels call the match usually, but WWE flips things and they do things as far as they are a quote unquote babyface territory, which means that the front guy of the territory is always going to be a babyface. So think John Cena, think Hulk Hogan, Bret the Hitman Hart, Shawn Michaels, etc., etc. I might do a video on that later, explaining how hard that is. That also explains a lot of the wrestling slumps, and when it comes to WWE, because it's very, very hard to be babyface. A babyface company. It's harder than it is to be a heel company. But I'll get to that some other time. So this is what The Miz believes. He's not sure. He thinks that maybe it's just some people don't have any faith in him. Some people just don't like him. He has this reality star stain. This is obviously we listen to certain people in podcasts, most notably a guy like Jim Cornette. No matter how good a match Miz has, and he doesn't have that many good matches where he's actually really good in them, but he's a great character. The Miz can talk his ass off. He has great personality. He's punchable. He has a punchable face. He's he's easily hateable. He's annoying in all the right ways. He's really good, and he should be a top guy as far as a top heel. But he also could make a really good manager. But before we get there, there's another thing that we need to discuss, because this is part of The Miz's problem. So The Miz gets chastised by his wife for playing games with his friends too loudly. So this is absolutely ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous. So let's play this here.
He's talking about the scoreboard.
Hold on. No, I'm serious. I'm serious.
What?
I'm trying to do something here.
I'm playing a video game.
I'm trying to concentrate because I have a Zoom meeting and you're not respecting that. Your dad is.
I can't see what's going on, but I think Miz is getting yelled at.
Naked and you're screaming the whole time.
I'm trying to play this. I'm in the championship.
You're screaming too loud. I can't concentrate. Just respect that. Honestly, when I asked you guys to take care of everything, I was expecting you to
Can I get back?
take it over here.
Yes, can I get back to it? Please, please, thank you.
You heard that giggling? That's the Miz in a nutshell, dog. That's it in a nutshell, dog. Sometimes he's too nice. And so there you have it. The Miz is just constantly being bullied, yelled at, disrespected. I mean, Miz is the same guy that JBL threw out of the locker room back in the early days. Miz is the same guy that was openly disrespected by CM Punk when he main evented WrestleMania, and CM Punk said he didn't deserve it. He's basically been living and dying on that hill. I mean, the complete disrespect and disregard for all the Miz's work. The Miz has been in the WWE for over 10 years. He still gets treated like, pretty much a newbie, a new booty. He don't get any respect by anybody from the fans. I'm pretty sure some of his co-workers respect him now, but most of the fans don't seem to respect the Miz at all. And I think most of that comes from the fact that he does a lot of reality TV. As far as we know, we know for a fact that the Miz was originally from the real world in like 2000 or 2001 or something like that. This is where he was, as a young guy, he sort of introduced the world to the Miz when he was drunk. He's like a drunken character on the real world, and he was talking about he wanted to be the Miz and all that stuff, and that kind of that and some light training. He didn't do a lot of heavy indie stuff. Got him into the WWE, which is of course backwards, because WWE, signing guys with little to no athletic background and turning them into wrestlers. I mean, you also had the Miz also came in during the Tough Enough, which was the training show for WWE, but that was a reality TV show, sort of a game show. So there was another reality TV show. He does a reality TV show right now, Miz and Mrs. with his wife. So he's seen him as a reality TV star, not as a wrestler. And that kind of leads itself to him being completely and totally disrespected all the time. But another reason why people hate The Miz is because he's an overachiever. The Miz does a lot of the stuff that other people are jealous of. He has a hot wife. He lived his dream. With little to no athletic background, he was able to become the WWE Champion and main event WrestleMania. Something that very few people have actually done. There are people who are, again, I mentioned CM Punk, but he's not the only one. There was other people who kind of just felt like he's a pushover. He's somebody that they can fuck with. Daniel Bryan was another one. The infamous Talking Smack segment from, I want to say 2016, but it might have been 2017. This was right in the middle of The Miz being a really good Intercontinental Champion. And Daniel Bryan's calling him a coward and saying he wrestles weak and all this type of stuff. And finally, it felt like, when you watch a kid get bullied all the time, he finally fights back. That's kind of how it felt when The Miz finally bowed up on Daniel Bryan at that Talking Smack segment. That's kind of how it felt. It kind of felt like finally, after all these years of you getting kicked around and treated like shit, you've been in the company since 2004, and you've been still getting people still fucking with you 10 years later. Like that's insane, man. And it seemed like he finally sort of snapped, and it was like, okay, now he's the guy. But it's just not going to work. And The Miz is an okay worker. He has some good matches with the right people. Dolph Ziggler especially. He really killed it with Dolph. He had a really awesome feud. But he's not doing anything right now. And I think he's kind of peaked. Because I'm not so sure they can put The Miz over anybody that's in the main event right now. He'd probably end up right back in the Intercontinental Championship picture. So I think he should move on and just become a manager. So who should he manage if he was to become a manager? Well, I just did a video about Donovan Dijakovic, who is stale bread. And to be quite honest, I think he might be a decent choice for The Miz as a guy that The Miz could really do the talking for. And The Miz can take bumps because it's important that a manager can take bumps. So I think that The Miz would be a really good manager for him. There's probably some other guys on NXT that The Miz could probably work with. But they have to be, of course, smaller or bigger than he is. So there's not a lot of those guys. But maybe, some people who might fit his gimmick, or some guys who don't have a gimmick at all, and he could sort of mold them And I think Dijakovic could be one of those guys because he might look decent in a suit. I mean, I guess I would hope so. But the Miz, being the Miz is suffering, dog. Like it's a double-edged blade. Like I would rather be the Miz because again, he got everything that he ever wanted out of life. You know, everything he's ever wanted, he's been able to do, and he did it through hard work and listening to the right people, and taking his lumps and moving on. But some people he just can't seem to be to get away from the playground mentality of just being shitted on and picked on. He's always getting embarrassed on TV and stuff like that. It's just crazy, man. And I feel bad for him. But like I said, The Miz is a guy I respect, because I remember when he did the Diva Search segment and he stood out there and on a live episode of Raw without knowing what he was supposed to say next. He completely forgot what he was supposed to say, and he just stood out there stammering, and it was so cringy, it was so bad, and he bounced back from that. And I gotta say, man, I probably would have quit if I'd have froze up to that degree in front of thousands of people watching and millions of people at home. I don't know if I would have been able to go to work the next day. I really don't. And he stuck with it. He learned, and he got better. He got much better. Now the weakest part of his game is the strongest part. He really didn't know how to cut promos before. Now that's the best thing he does. Now his ring work, which is not terrible, it's not like god awful, but it's not that great. He doesn't look like his attacks and stuff does not have like a lot of aggression to it. But that's about it. The guy's living his dream, and he can get out of the game while he still can. While he's in one piece, not injured, no concussions, no broken bones or anything like that. The man should just walk away. He doesn't need this shit. Just walk away, dog. Go become a manager. Pitch to manage somebody. All right, so let me reiterate. Like this video, share, and subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and I'll talk to you all later.